Another day, another video about the Edmonton Maple Leafs, and a new rumor that has been popping up here that has gotten the media talking. Now, this isn't necessarily something that has been on TV, it's just kind of been something I've seen on Twitter, circulating the rounds as to a few discussions here and there, mostly because of Sam Turpak. Now, if you don't know who Sam is, he does some very good work for the Slovak prospect system over there in the hockey world. He is a head scout and writer for the Slovak website Oh My Hockey, as well as Sportnet. I believe he also did do a lot of work for Dauber. He's a good follow, and I definitely do recommend you keeping up to date with prospects through his analysis. But what Sam tweeted out the other day on July 26th went sort of viral, and you had a lot of people going out there and talking about this idea because of the tweet. This is what he's hearing from certain sources, that Michael Bunting, as a UFA, could be offered a contract of up to $5.5 million in the offseason for the next 5 to 6 years. There are a lot of teams that would be interested, but Sam is hearing per sources that the Edmonton Oilers would be one of them, as they've already printed out the contract. Now, that last part, assuming this tweet is 100% factually correct, is probably not the most accurate way of describing the situation, because you can't really print out a contract for a guy that is going to be a UFA in a year. What he's pretty much saying is that the Oilers like him so much that they're already trying to work him into their next year's plans should he actually go to free agency. Now, you could see the replies to this tweet. You could see the likes. It's got 600 likes, whole bunch of retweets and everything. This quote got people up in arms because, oh my gosh, the Edmonton Oilers are just ripping off the Maple Leafs. It's the Edmonton Maple Leafs all this time, from Hyman to Campbell to Bunting. What the hell are the Oilers going to do next? Are they going to try to go after Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander? This Oilers squad is just going out here and ripping the doors down from Scotiabank Arena, and they're going to reconstruct their own Rogers Center from those pieces. It's the old ship of Theseus paradox, isn't it? But you know what? I did want to go out there and talk about this on the channel, mostly because Michael Bunting being a free agent just in general is such an intriguing conversation, because I mean, look, with all the conversations going on about Michael Bunting last year being this old grandfather of a rookie, a guy who was like 2 games away in previous years to not being eligible for the Calder, and was 2 days away from his birth date to not being eligible for the Calder either, to becoming the top rookie scorer amongst all Calder-eligible players. It was such an interesting conversation to be talking about Michael Bunting, because this guy is pretty much in the quote-unquote prime of his career already, and he's turning 27 at the start of the 2022-2023 season. Now, let's go over to Bunting and the entire profile here. Born September 17th, 1995, 26 years old right now, 6 feet 185 as a left-handed forward, signed to a $950,000 deal till the end of 2022-2023. He has never had a cap hit that is over $1 million. This is the first season where he actually gets a minor salary that is over $1 million. He's got $1.15 million in the bank in that capacity over there. Heading into the next few seasons, though, it's probably a rational idea to say that Bunting is going to get paid a lot more than $950,000. After bouncing around in the NHL and the AHL with the Arizona Coyotes and the Tucson Roadrunners, he eventually became a free agent in the 2021 offseason after getting 13 points in 21 Arizona Coyotes games. He also was over a point per game in the AHL. After signing on with the Maple Leafs, though, and playing on the top line with Austin Matthews, he had 63 points and 23 goals in 79 games played. As we said, number 1 amongst all the rookies in total points, and it's not even like Bunting only primarily benefited from playing with Matthews and Marner, etc. He was played on a few lines throughout the 21-22 season, and it was a pretty notable pattern that throughout the year, whenever Bunting would play with a guy, that guy would always have better advanced analytics because Bunting was actually a pretty good hockey player. He was hard-nosed, he could go into the boards, he could win puck battles, and he could just do everything right. He also was the net front presence that would allow pucks to go in and do the greasy rebound goals too. Bunting was pretty much a poor man Zach Hyman, while also producing in similar capacities to Zach Hyman. Plus the fact that he was only making $900,000, this was a steal for the Toronto Maple Leafs in terms of what they wanted wanted to accomplish in the short term. Now, we know this team did not end up winning anything in the playoffs. They lost in the first round yet again, this time to the Tampa Bay Lightning. This time, though, I do think they actually lost straight up. They didn't lose because they got fluky and they ended up blowing a lead or whatever. They lost fair and square to a team that just had the edge over them in the slightest capacity. They had the best chance to win this Game 7 series against Tampa Bay than any of the other final game series they had against Columbus, against Montreal. Montreal was kind of whack because they blew that one. And then against Boston and Washington. This Tampa series was the closest the Maple Leafs have had to actually making the second round. It just didn't happen. And so now you have Michael Bunting signed to one more year at this $900,000 cap hit. He is likely going to be a top 6 player for the Maple Leafs, and he's probably going to produce 50-ish 50 plus, maybe even 60 points again, maybe even, heck, 65, 70 points. He was on pace for like 67, 68, maybe 69, who really knows? Over a full 82-game season. Okay, more like 65, just by looking at the numbers right here, but still, this is a player that is going to get a payday, and the number that Sam is throwing out here, $5.5-ish million over the next 5 to 6 years, does seem a little bit more rational than I thought it would be when you're talking about a guy who is in the smack dab middle of his prime and who is a quote-unquote 65-point caliber forward. This is the type of guy that, under normal circumstances, if he was actually like a 60 point guy his entire career, he might be able to reach that $6.5 million territory. But because he's only really broken into the NHL right now, and this is going to be his second full season, and this is really going to be the time for us to determine, okay, is he really legit, or was he just benefiting because he played with Matthews? This might be a pretty interesting outcome to keep an eye on as the 2022-2023 season proceeds. And if Edmonton is specifically that team that wants him the most, then hey, I mean, you talk about Zach Hyman, that's a guy that really worked out well for the Oilers in the 2022 playoffs. You saw the amount of goals that he scored. Obviously, they still have Evander Kane. Obviously, they still have McDavid and Draisaitl. They finally have a goaltender now in Jack Campbell, whom I'm a lot more believing in than I was in Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen, no offense. So this is a team that sort of is on the up and up. Now, whether or not they're actually going to be able to afford a player like Michael Bunting at $5.5 million a season for the next 5-6 years, that remains to be seen, but Ken Holland, if he really wants something, he's going to go out there and try to get it. They already tried to get Andrei Kuzmenko and court him at the Joeys over there in Edmonton. It just didn't really work because he chose Vancouver instead. But Oilers fans, Leafs fans, talk to the comments your thoughts about the idea of Michael Bunting heading over to Oiltown. Is this report from Sam something that surprises you, that the $5.5 million AAV range by 5 or 6 years is kind of the territory the teams are looking at? You gotta remember, if this is a contract that extends to 6 years, I mean, Bunting is gonna be in his early 30s by the time it expires, and this will probably be the biggest contract he'll ever earn in his career because he's been a sub-$1 million player the entire time heading up to this point. So talk to the comments your thoughts about Bunting and the future. Maple Leafs fans, if you want to keep Bunting around, which I'm pretty sure the majority of you would want to do so, what are the steps you need to take to go out there and do that? Does it start with a Kerfoot trade, eventually leading into a Muzzin trade next season, or do you go out there and try to swap somebody else and get somebody who's even cheaper, get somebody else who is doing well in the AHL, sign him to a sub-$1 million deal and hope he does as well as Bunting did? Talk to me in the comments on your thoughts about the protocol and what you should do heading into the next few months. I hope you enjoyed this video, Juraj 99, and bye.